Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name's Rodney Glover. I am the candidate for governor of Florida. A lot of times we ask the question, how did we get here way too late? And we don't understand a lot of things. And, then everything kind of gets kind of thrown out of the way, right? So one of the things that we do is we give up too much power. And you're like, well, what are you talking about now? You're always giving us all this information. I'm going to come to you again with a fact. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution, it's a protection for states. It says that you cannot get into these binding contracts with foreign entities, right? It's so if something happens, the federal government can make sure that you have protection. That's it. That's all you need to know is this is to protect you. So what did the state of Florida do? The state of Florida, because we keep hiring lawyers, the state of Florida said, hey, we can just come up with a memorandum of understanding. It's a non-binding contract. And that's exactly what we did. We decided to say, hey, we're going to have all of these MOUs with countries like Israel. We're going to have an MOU with Japan. We're going to have an MOU with Italy. We're going to have all of these MOUs with these foreign entities. We're going to have an MOU with Taiwan. We're just going to have these MOUs. And because of these MOUs that were signed over 20 years ago, we decided to say that we're not breaking constitutional law because they're non-binding contracts. Now, here's the thing. These MOUs make up 17%, 17% of our GDP. 17% of our GDP is under these MOUs. That kind of equates to, I believe, if I did my research right, it was about 2 million jobs in the state of Florida. And they're saying that that's non-binding. So if any one of these countries get together and want to use that 17% as leverage to say, well, hey, here's a backdoor conversation. You can owe us this. And if you don't give us this, we'll hurt your industry here, right? Because we didn't do it the right way. We went around the right way because going around it was available. Now, 2 million citizens in the state of Florida can be leveraged. And I don't know if we've ever been used, if that leverage has ever happened before. I don't know if indeed we've passed laws because those backdoor conversations led to knowing that 17% of our state, the 2 million people that work here, that live here, are always used as leverage or can be used as leverage. Because since we didn't go through the federal government, we were not transparent with the deals that we needed to be in. So citizens were not able to hear what's going on, why we're doing this. We weren't able to get other representatives to say, we don't think that's a good idea, things of that nature. And I'll just break it down to you. Japan, we're at a 6.8 billion total trade with them. Italy, 4.3 billion total trade with them. Israel, 806 million total trade with them. South Korea, 1.3 billion total trade. United Kingdom, 5.8 billion total trade. You kind of understand? Total bilateral trade that Florida does is 18.996 billion, 9.6% of Florida's total merchandise trade. So when things happen, when things go bad, it's because we keep looking for loopholes that don't allow the conversations to need to happen to make sure that we get the protection, to make sure that the scrutiny is available. And I am here to tell you that you need to scrutinize, that you need to be a part of these conversations, that you need to be able to vote on, hey, if these individuals, if something happens to them and they're asking for assistance here, how is it going to affect our citizens? If we decide to say, no, we're not going to do this, what are they going to do? Why would we give up that level of leverage? It's super important to understand. Wait, this isn't the conversation of, well, some people are playing chess and others are playing checkers. You're not good just because you found a loophole in something that was meant to protect citizens. That doesn't make you smart. It doesn't mean that, oh yeah, look how much money we made at the expense of using you as leverage or putting you on the chopping block. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Like, you can say that Well, I'm still doing well, but at the behest or expense of who? And then it's, well, it hasn't happened yet until we find out that it did. That's the problem. Every time we're finding out too late. That's why I'm trying to tell you that we can get the who. We will get the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how before we say yes. We're going to understand these things before we say yes. That's why I'm running for governor of Florida, to make sure that we can do this before we say yes. Who is it going to affect? What could be the implications? These should all be answered before we say yes. But by the time we find out that someone's done something, now we have to still wait to make sure that the Supreme Court, who never ruled on this because it hasn't been brought up yet. So we have to decide to still go back and say, hey, we need to make sure that we put this back in the right place for the system so that it works properly. And that in itself is probably going to be a nightmare that I'm asking for. We've got to correct and reform these things that have been done because they're just chasing money. But you can still, if you can't get to the money without putting 2 million of your citizens at risk, look, again, they said it's a non-binding contract that provides 17% of the way we live. That's pretty binding. And someone's going to argue that that is pretty binding. Because if indeed things go bad and people start pulling out, where was the protection? You circumvented it. And that's where we need better leadership. We need better leadership by giving you more information so that you can weigh in. Because if you're going to be used as leverage, you should at least know better.